My guest today is Kelly Lang, who has had a stellar career in the music industry with cuts by artists such as Ricky Skaggs, Lori Morgan, the Oak Ridge Boys, Crystal Gale, George Jones, B.J. Thomas, T.G. Shepherd, Jerry Lee Lewis, and that is just to name a few. Well, she has recorded duets with iconic artists Dame Olivia Newton-John, Paul Shaffer, and Lee Greenwood. And as an artist, Kelly Lang has released several albums, including 1111, Shades of K, Throwback, Obsession, and iconic duets with her husband, T.G. Shepherd, and also her brand new release, Old Soul. Well, in the spring of 2020, Kelly Lang re-released her classic children's album, Lullaby Country, which was originally sold at Cracker Barrel. Well, as part of a regional campaign, her voice and writing skills can be heard on television throughout Tennessee and the surrounding areas as the official song for the Ascension St. Thomas Hospital's commercial titled, I'm Not Going Anywhere. And ladies and gentlemen, this is just a short version of her amazing resume, and we're also going to discuss and celebrate 15 years of her being a breast cancer survivor. So to help tell the rest of the story, let's welcome singer-songwriter Kelly Lang. Welcome to the show, Kelly.
Thank you so much for having me. What a pleasure.
Well,
I'm
I
not
want
technically I'm not technically normally good on computers, so thank you for walking me through a few things.
Oh, sure. Well, you look great and everything's working fine. But I've got to ask you something because I want to kind of step back in time. And I
Okay.
know that your father, Velton Lang, was the road manager for country legend Conway Twitty. Did you
He
ever get to
was.
travel with your dad?
On occasion we would go to shows that were close by, and we had, an opportunity to see Conway perform thousands of times, but I never really physically went on the bus or on the planes with them when they would go. But if he was playing anywhere in the 200-mile range, we would end up driving over and checking the show out. It was always awesome.
Well, where did you end up with a love for music and especially, I guess, country music?
Well, I think it's a love of all music. My mom always had music playing in the background, always had, it wasn't necessarily country. It was like Gladys Knight or Frankie Valli or, Elvis playing in the background. And of course Conway too, because, he was our greatest love. But we had so much opportunities to meet new people in the music industry because Conway started out with rock and ended up in country. My love just was always just being surrounded by people that I thought were just so cool and so fun to be around. And it really wasn't anything unusual that Loretta Lynn or George Jones or anybody of that caliber would call and ask my dad's advice on things. And they actually, both of those two actually wrote about my dad in their books. And so it was just a thrill to know how important he was in his role with their lives.
Well, you ended up recording your first Billboard song called Lady Lady. And being at the age of 15, how were you discovered?
Well, I started singing when I was professionally when I was about 12 years old here in the Nashville area, and singing on a show called the Ralph Emery Morning Show. And from that, just kind of one thing led to another. And I tease sometimes now because I know that my talent was not necessarily mature at that time, but boy, my ambition was. I wasn't going to give up. It was like a hair on a biscuit. I was staying in there whether they liked it or not. And I put myself in positions to where, like I would do a TV show, and then that would lead to another show, and that led to a booking agent, and that led to opening act for people. And the more I progressed with doing more and more work, I guess they knew I wasn't leaving. I ended up becoming a part of Star Search. They asked me to come and try out, and that really opened up a lot of opportunities for me on a national platform. And I went on to do Music City Tonight, which again led to other platform opportunities. So it was just, you just do something long enough, and people go, "Oh yeah, you should call Kelly to do that." So looking back on it, I've had a stellar, long career. Um, and you think, oh, the next thing is going to be bigger, the next thing is going to be bigger, but it's just stepping stones to the next place that makes you feel fulfilled at the end of the day.
Well, so you have all this experience, and now when we watch television, we see American Idol, we see The
Mhm.
Voice. What is your what is your mindset or thought when you see those shows today? When the original show, we look back, Star Search was really the first one that ever did that.
Thank you. I think so too. Things are so different now with social media and these kids, you know, I wouldn't envy this situation that they're in right now because they haven't had time to grow into that enormous fame. And fame is not necessarily a good thing, especially if you're not prepared for it and you're not willing to use it for the proper things. So sometimes I think they're thrown into that and then they get all hyped up. And then if the career does not take off, it's a real down. It's a really far cry down. So I worry about that a little bit. Whereas with Star Search, we did not have social media and it was only on its own merit and it allowed artists to grow. There's so many people that came up from our era, like Sawyer Brown, Sinbad, Roseanne. I mean, not Roseanne, but Rosie O'Donnell. Oh my, I mean, there's so many people that are now really doing well that were on the same exact year that I was on. It's really cool.
Yeah, it's amazing how social media and music have played this very weird role in today's society. And I think you said something that a lot of people may not take notice of, that the stars rise and fall extremely fast with social media now, where back in the day that if someone was on Star Search and got known, then there's a longevity there. I mean, it's going to be extremely rare to see people like Kelly Clarkson, Carrie Underwood. Those are just you know phenoms in a way that's not going
Yeah.
to happen for everybody.
Well, my husband is T.G. Shepherd, and he and I were having this long talk about this very same thing a while back. In the day, and I'm saying 80s, 90s, that kind of
Right.
thing. When you signed to a record label, they took the time to grow a career. Nowadays, it seems like they're just throwing a single at the wall, and if it doesn't stick, then you're gone.
Right.
So the growing of careers, I think, is something that's a missed art, and it gives people an opportunity to build and grow with you, and your talent can be embraced by more people as more people know about you. Whereas social media, I have good and bad feelings about it. I just think so many people just don't use it a positive light, and that
Right.
makes me a little sad. But it's a wonderful tool for someone like myself because record labels are not as plentiful as they once were, and it
Yeah.
gives the artist an opportunity to have their own voice and their own direction as to how they want their career to go. So, and the older, or should I say, the more wise we get, I love the control of your image or your video or how the song is supposed to sound. So you have a little bit more say so and direction in your life. You kind of can change the directory of your life. It's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, in the past, you would have the record label develop the artist.
Yeah, and so
Maybe
many times it's not an authentic development, and you'll see
no.
that personality come out really differently on social media than what the label might have portrayed.
Well, yeah, definitely. Well, I want to move the focus back on you because this is what this is all about, and you are, one of the biggest songwriters out there. And I mean, you've written songs
Thank
for
you.
Jerry Lee Lewis, Crystal Gale, the Oak Ridge Boys, George Jones. The list goes on. How do you approach your songwriting?
Well, there's two ways that I have found that I can write. The basic way that most writers get together, not so much necessarily in COVID, but you can do this on Skype or whatever, is you make an appointment, you show up, one of y'all had an idea, the other one might have a melody, and you write a song. And that can happen. You can write those kind of songs, and there's a lot of hit radio songs like that. The way I love to write though is when I've been woken up in the middle of the night and a melody's coming. and or I'm really really relaxed in the pool and I start feeling lyrics coming. So on those occasions I feel that those are some of my stronger songs because I feel that they're actually inspired. They're not something I had to force to come up with something that rhymes, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So the inspiring part of it, I'm just seriously holding the pen. God is writing it. There's no other explanation that I can tell you with that one.
You know, I like studying songwriters, even though I'm just a music listener. I don't play an instrument, I don't write songs, but I like to read what others have done or how they approach things.
Mhm.
And some people may ask me, well, who do you like as a songwriter? And when I say it, they look at me like, are you kidding? Well, I think Barry Gibb is one of the best of all time. And it's funny to hear some of his stories because he would say, "Oh, we wrote that song in 5 minutes," and
He
then
does. He and his brothers used to write very quickly.
yeah,
One of the great things that I've learned from Barry alone, we're very close friends, and I've been able to have conversations with him about his writing progress or his process, and it's very different from most, which we should take note, right? Because he is the second leading, besides Paul McCartney, earning I think it's at BMI songwriter in all of time. So we should all sit up and take note of what he's saying. What he likes to do is a melody first and a groove probably. And like one of the funny things that I heard him say was they were going across the bridge when he was getting ready to write, probably going to get this song wrong, but it was like the sound was like
jive talking.
dive talking. It was like a
They,
bridge that he was going
he
over
he
every
could
day.
hear the train and
Yeah.
the
And
rhythm of the
so
tracks.
yeah, exactly. And so he started with the rhythm and then he finds a word that he likes. It's just like an endearing word. And then he wraps rhyme around it. Sometimes the songs you go, what did he mean by that?
Yeah.
It might have just rhymed well, so but I find his writing fascinating because it's all from within.
Yeah.
He doesn't let anybody tell him, oh, that's wrong, or you shouldn't have written it like that, because he goes from within, and it's an internal thing that it's a God-given gift, really.
Well, is has songwriting changed when in the day when you'd go into the studio and you would turn the tape on versus today where a lot of people are just sitting there in front of a MacBook computer and turning on Pro Tools? Is there a difference now when it comes to songwriting in that area?
Well, it's very similar to what we were talking about with social media. There's good and bad with both. I'm really grateful that I've experienced both, because the tape era, I believe, is when the true talent lies.
Oh, I
I mean, you
agree.
have to be a masterful engineer to know exactly where to split that tape, because it's a one take thing. It's
Yeah.
good luck with that. But as we progress with technology, thank God we don't have to worry about baking a tape or tearing a tape now. Um, and if you don't overuse all of the new tools with tuning and things like that, it's just a faster way of being able to save things in longer terms. So I I love both ways of it. I honestly do.
Well, let me ask you this. You are a 15-year breast cancer survivor.
Yeah, I am.
What was your first thought when you got the diagnosis?
I was mad, doctor. I was so mad. I had so many plans for myself. I had just signed with a record label. I was a single mom of two little girls, but I had put my career off for quite some time to just really concentrate on them. I did writing and stuff while I was raising them, but for the most part, I was really looking forward to this new chapter. And I felt good. I was traveling overseas. I was doing shows in Switzerland, and I felt a knot under my arm. And I'm like, that is weird. I've never felt that before. And it started to hurt, which I've heard cancer doesn't hurt. That's not necessarily the truth.
Mm.
So I learned a lot. So I was upset when I was diagnosed and my record label dropped me. I felt that they were very um, cold, They didn't ask any
Wow.
questions. They never asked how I was feeling. It was just a really rotten time for me to feel very alone and very dropped. And so I had to work through a lot of that because it hurt my heart. It hurt my feelings to just, oh, you're sick. It's
Well, it's not like it was your fault or anything.
no, no. And so whatever that ended up being was a gift to me because I had to really go internal and really know what's right and wrong for me. I had to heal. Um, I just I wouldn't take anything for that experience on this side of the fence
Right.
because I have grown so much as a friend and as a human being, and I'm so grateful. I often tell people somebody could look at that as a death sentence, but
Yeah.
I chose at that time to look at it as my life sentence because I learned to appreciate things more, and I learned to really love bigger and try new things that I might have been too afraid to try before. So it gave me it gave me a better perspective on life altogether. And I really really prayed. I said, God, please just let me survive this. My little girls were 5 and 9.
Wow.
And no, excuse me, 9 and 13. 9 and 13. And I didn't want them to see me afraid, or I didn't want them to see me in a weakened state. So I was always put on a brave face, I suppose. Um, but I feel like in his gift to give me more time here, my promise back to him was to be faithful to help other people be a bright light that I didn't have. I didn't know anybody that was my age, going through
Yeah.
something like that. So I really I feel a responsibility to help people through something like that because it is rough. I am not going to make light of it in any way. I was devastated because I was 36. Um, I personally chose to do a limp. I mean, oh my goodness,
Lumpectomy.
lumpectomy instead of a mastectomy, and the doctors were really a little disappointed that I didn't go the route they suspected I should at first. So I was a little renegade, I guess. I did a lot of research on the chemo treatments that they had me on, and the I had two every other week for I believe it was 2 months, and then they wanted me to be on, I think it's Taxol, and I felt that the side effects of that were a little bit too much for me personally
Yeah.
to handle. And so I'm a chemo dropout.
Wow.
They were not,
Wow.
yeah, they were not really happy with me and leaving so early. And then also, this is a personal choice. I don't
Right.
advocate for other people to do this, but I just did a lot of internal thinking and researching about what I wanted to do. Doesn't make it right for everybody else. So I want to make sure everybody knows that. But they also wanted me to be on tamoxifen for 5 years, and I I took it for a little while, but it just wasn't my thing. I just didn't feel comfortable on it. I was aching on it all the time. I gained an exorbitant amount of weight in a very quick time, and I just started thinking, if I'm miserable and alive, this is not really living for me.
Mm.
So again, I was making renegade choices, and luckily, it has paid off for me. But I don't want to be that advocate for someone to say, "Hey, this
Well,
isn't for
did
you
you
either."
did you change your diet? What were the things that you kind of focused on uh, to hopefully recover?
Well, a lot of prayer, a
Amen.
lot of prayer. Um, I did change my diet for a little while, but I am such a weak human being that I tried the juicing thing. I tried staying away from sugars as much as I can, but I'm just like, I'm human, and I tend, tend to. One thing I was surprised about is the weight gain that I had during breast cancer. I felt that I would have gotten thin,
Yeah.
so bald and fat was not an option for me.
So how long was the battle, or I should say, how long was the recovery?
You know what? That's a brilliant question. I feel that the recovery is for life.
Mm.
Um, I still deal with issues from radiation. I think it's like the gift that keeps on giving.
Yeah.
I did 37 treatments of radiation, and I honestly thought, oh, this is a breeze. I'll get through this. And of course, with each treatment, you get more tired. You get a little bit worn out and burned or whatever.
Yeah.
But I have repercussions from that with back issues, like a very weak um, discs. I had 5 discs repaired a few years ago, and they attributed that to the radiation that I dealt with.
Wow.
Um, the the actual recovery process of it, I think I had when as a female, I guess I'm going to say this in a vain way. When my hair started growing back, I felt like a rock star. I was
Ah.
like, I'm healed. I have hair. So that's probably a naive way of looking at it, but that was my telltale. So, but right
Wow.
after I had my surgery and radiation and chemo, the doctors felt that it would be best for me to go ahead and have a hysterectomy too. So it was a really tough year as a female. It was just I felt like I was living in doctor's offices for at least a year, and then every few months after that for the next several years. So it's been a very long process.
Now, during or I should say, at the beginning of the cancer diagnosis and during the battle. Now, were you and TG married at that time?
No, and if you don't mind, I'd like to share a really sweet story with you because
Yes.
there's so many people that go through illnesses. I'm not just going to say breast cancer, but illnesses, and they don't necessarily have a partner that will stick around. Especially if you're not married. And we had been dating for a few years, but neither of us were really in a position to be able to commit. He wasn't sure he wanted young children, and he had already gone through a really harsh breakup before that. And then I get sick, so again, I told you I didn't want to let anybody see me weakened or without a wig or something because I didn't want to frighten anybody.
Yeah.
We never lived together before we married, so but he did have a key to my place. So one morning I was the girls had gone to school, and I was just getting out of the shower, and it was the first time I really had taken the time to look in my eyes in the mirror and just look at this. It looked like a monster was staring back at me, and it was just tinge of green and bald and scars and markings all over me. It was really intense, and I began to cry for the first time, and it was a moaning, groaning kind of cry I've never experienced before. And during this time, I did not know that he had let himself in my apartment.
Wow.
And it scared me that he just like, what are you doing? And I was like, oh my gosh. He was so sweet. He wrapped me up in a white terry cloth robe, and he'd never seen me bald before. It had to have been shocking for him, honestly. And he pulled me down on his lap and in the floor of my closet and started rocking me like a baby. And he kissed me on my bald head. And I said, TG, I love you so much, but I love you enough to tell you it's time for you to go. We do not need to be forcing this. And I don't know if I'm going to make it. And here's your exit sign.
Wow.
And he kept assuring me, he said, you're the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. And he kept kissing me on my head. And he said, I'm not leaving. I'm right here with you. I will never leave you. And I thought, I don't want him to stay out of obligation either, though,
Yeah.
because our guilt or whatever. But time surely has made that particular feeling go away because he's still here and we're thicker than ever. And I think it's a good testament for other men who see their women go through that. How big of a man are you to steer with a woman during something that tragic? It was very powerful connection for he and I at that moment.
Wow, that is a powerful story. I mean, I think the
Yeah.
record label should man up, but yeah,
They're out of business now. It doesn't matter.
well, they reaped what they sowed, I believe.
Well,
So,
that's life experience, and
yeah,
that's what I was saying. I love being a little bit past those situations because I can now see things more clearly,
yeah.
and it wasn't my time. It wasn't my thing, and I can accept that and know that, God had bigger plans for me in a different way than I would have ever taken for myself. So,
Now,
yeah.
Kelly, where can all of my viewers and listeners find all of your albums, especially the new release, Old Soul?
Well, if you would please go to kellylang.net, you can find all of my music on there. But I will say this, if you don't mind me mentioning, I'm so excited, Doctor, to have written a song many, many years ago that's getting ready to be out on a national television commercial for Ascension Hospitals. You are going to get so sick of hearing my song, I'm Not Going Anywhere. So that will be a single coming out soon. And my husband, T.G. Shepherd, and I also have a Christmas single coming out first part of November. So we've got a lot of new things going on. And I hope that all of your viewers and listeners will be able to tap into kellylang.net and check our new stuff out.
Well, that is fantastic. And Kelly, I want to thank you so much for your time to be on the show today. Just kind of share your background and share your breast cancer survivor story, and praise the Lord. We can use the word survivor, and you look healthy and strong.
I am. I'm 10 pounds over in COVID, but I'm happy and healthy. But I just wish everyone that is struggling out there with something to look at my opportunity to speak with you here as maybe a ray of light, that there is life at the end of this bad situation, and just choose happy. Turn the channel to happy, and you'll find a new perspective of how to get through those dark days.
I'm Norm.
I'm Saz.
And we live in Columbia, Missouri. We do consulting, but we also write.
We take care of ourselves constantly. It's important. We walk 3 to 5 times a week, a couple miles at a time.
We've both been taking Prevagen for a little more than 11 years now. After about 30 days of taking it, we noticed clarity that we didn't notice before.
It's still helping me. I still notice a difference.
Prevagen, healthier brain, better life.
Take my hand, don't let go. Look in my eyes and in my soul. Hold me close, hold me near. Please let go of all your fear. I'm not going anywhere. I'd give my heart to you if yours stopped beating. Part your lips with mine. If you weren't breathing, you have no burden that I wouldn't bear. I'm not going anywhere.
Got questions about something you've seen on today's show? Looking for answers to your health questions? Send your questions to him directly at questions@drwardbond.com. For a faster response, please keep your questions to 250 characters or less. Short and sweet equals fast and helpful. Contact Dr. Bond today.